In the shadows of the Roman Empire's decline, where the torchlight of civilization flickered against the encroaching rot of the provinces, there existed a terror that predated the cross and the coffin. They were not the elegant aristocrats of modern myth, but the Strigae, stinking, feathered abominations, and the vampiri, the restless, hungry dead, who clawed through the packed earth of the Via Appia. The village of Aricia sat like a bruised fruit at the base of the Alban Hills. For 3 nights, the silence of the olive groves had been broken by a sound that made the guard dogs strangle themselves on their chains, a rhythmic, leathery flapping, and a whistle that sounded like wind through a flute made of human bone. Marcus, a veteran of the Danubian wars, sat in his villa clutching a gladius that felt useless against the unseen. His youngest son, Gaius, lay in the atrium, his skin the color of curdled milk. There were no wounds on the boy, only a cluster of bruised, needle-thin punctures atop his sternum, hidden beneath the folds of his tunic. The screech owl, his wife, Livia, whispered, her eyes wide and glassy. The Strigas have smelled his fever. Marcus didn't believe in the old hag's tales until he heard the scratching on the roof tiles. It wasn't the sound of a bird. It was the sound of heavy, hooked talons, human fingers elongated into keratin blades, dragging across the terracotta. Then came the smell, the copper tang of old blood mixed with the sulfuric stench of the grave. A shadow crossed the skylight of the compluvium. It descended slowly, not falling, but drifting like a bloated leaf. It was a striga. In the moonlight, it looked like a woman who had been put through a rack and then sewn into the carcass of a vulture. Its skin was a sickly, translucent gray, stretched over a ribcage that pulsed with a frantic, unnatural heartbeat. It had no beak. Instead, a hinged jaw hung open to reveal a black, hollow tongue, barbed and dripping with an anticoagulant bile. Marcus lunged, his blade whistling through the air. He struck the creature's side, but there was no spray of red, only a puff of dry, gray dust and a sound like tearing parchment. The striga shrieked, a sound that bypassed the ears and vibrated directly into the marrow of his teeth. Back, Marcus roared, but as he stepped toward his son, the floorboards beneath the boy erupted. This was the second horror, the vampirus. While the striga hunted from the air, the restless dead rose from the soil. A hand, blackened by the pressure of the earth and missing its fingernails from clawing at a stone sarcophagus, gripped the boy's ankle. The creature that pulled itself from the subsoil was Marcus's own brother, Lucius, who had died of the sweating sickness a month prior. But this was not Lucius. The eyes were gone, replaced by glowing pits of predatory hunger. Its lips had pulled back permanently into a skeletal snarl, and its belly was distended, swollen with the putrefying gases of the grave and the stolen blood of the village livestock. The striga dropped from the rafters, its talons locking into Marcus's shoulders, pinning him to the wall. He watched in helpless agony as the vampirus crawled over his son. It didn't bite with fangs. It pressed its rotting mouth against the boy's throat and began to inhale, its throat working in rhythmic, wet gulps as it drew the very essence of life through the pores of the skin. The room became a cacophony of horrors. The flapping of the hag's wings, the wet slurping of the corpse, and Livia's rhythmic chanting of useless charms. Marcus felt the striga's needle tongue probe the back of his neck, seeking the spine. He realized then that these were not 2 different monsters, but a cycle of Roman rot. The striga took the blood to sustain its hollow frame, but the vampirus took the soul to keep the body from ever finding the peace of the underworld. With a final, desperate surge of strength, Marcus knocked over the oil brazier. The flames raced across the mosaic floor, catching the dry, dusty feathers of the striga. The creature ignited like a torch, its scream reaching a pitch that shattered the ceramic wine amphorae. In the chaos of fire and smoke, the vampirus hissed, its pale skin bubbling. It released the boy and began to burrow back into the dirt with frantic, animal speed, preferring the cold dark of the earth to the cleansing heat of the flame. As the villa burned, Marcus dragged his son and wife into the courtyard. He looked back to see the striga, now a skeletal charcoal frame, fluttering one last time before collapsing into ash. But as he looked at Gaius, his heart froze. The boy's eyes, once brown and bright, had turned a milky, sightless white. His teeth were already beginning to ache, and as the moon rose over the hills, the boy didn't cry for his mother. He looked at the pulse jumping in Marcus's neck and let out a soft, whistling hiss. The Roman sun would rise, but for Marcus's lineage, the night had only just begun. The blood had been tasted, the hunger had been passed. Under the ruins of the empire, the thirsty ones would always wait.